Small World Vacations is proud to sponsor today's podcast. Their team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners and are recommended by MouseSavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars. Get your free price quote at WDWVacations.com. Small World Vacations, where the magic begins. This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, December 17th, 2007, and this is episode 345 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm your host, Matt Hochberg of Studio Central. On the show today, we have Len Testa, co-author of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome, Len.
How's it going, Matt?
Outstanding. Also on the show is Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com and All Ears Now. Welcome, Mike.
We have two answers for this opening, and it starts like this. Stop the movie.
Canada.
Muppets.
Canada and Muppets. That's correct.
And also on the show, we have Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
What's going on?
Oh, the usual. Mike, watching the Jets lose again.
Shut up.
Also on the show, we have Fred Hazelton, who is one of Len Testa's researchers for the Unofficial Guide, and he's also known as Superfan99 here on the podcast. Welcome, Fred.
Hey, what's up?
So we have to mention that Fred is actually snowed in somewhere above the Arctic Circle right now.
Typical Canadian, stuck in the snow. Yeah, I must admit though, it's brutal. I haven't seen this much snow in a long time, especially this early in the winter.
Well, you know, we call Fred Superfan99 because he was like one of the first people who actually listened to the podcast that was not related to us back at MouseFest 2005. We were there, and Fred was like one of the few people who actually ever listened to any episode. So we started calling him Superfan99, which is, of course, for those of you who may get it, that's a vague reference to the movie Swingers. And you have to rent the movie if you don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, I was an avid listener for the first 20 episodes, and then I haven't listened to it since pretty much. But
yeah, Len, why did we bring him back on again?
We were desperate for content, I think.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, on today's show, we're going to be talking about traveling to Walt Disney World as a single parent with children. We cover, I think, we do a decent job of covering traveling to Walt Disney World solo and traveling to Walt Disney World, in terms of families. But traveling as a single parent is a little different. And Fred's here. Fred, you are a single parent. You have 2 children?
Yes, two boys.
That's right. And we met one of your sons at MouseFest over here just 2 weeks ago in 2007. And I was walking around the Mega Mouse Meet, and then all of a sudden I felt a tug on my leg and saw a young child attached to my leg, which is very cute.
When the paramedics revived you.
That's right. I mean, it was a flashback to my appearance on Maury, but this was much better.
I don't think he called you daddy, did he? I hope not.
Well, I certainly hope not.
Call him mommy.
Mommy, yeah.
I mean, once is enough. I don't need to hear that again. So, Fred, let's start here. What do you think is the biggest challenge when going to Walt Disney World as a single parent?
Challenge? Well, certainly. I mean, I guess it depends on how old the child is that you're traveling with. But for me, with a young one, my son Alec, who I brought, as you mentioned, is only 5, so he's pretty young. So the biggest challenge for sure is not having the adult day-to-day contact. Because looking after a 5-year-old by yourself for 5 or 6 days in a row, you get you start talking the kitty talk a lot. So the challenge is trying to get out there and meet other families and sort of chat with people along your travels to keep yourself a little bit sane. But in terms of places to go as a single parent, my gosh, I can't think of a better place than somewhere like Disney World, because there's certainly no shortage of entertainment for a kid of all ages.
Now, let me ask you this, Fred. You've been there. You've traveled many times solo, and you've traveled with your kids. What's the biggest difference in terms of do you really change your focus because your kids are as you mentioned younger? Is there something a little different than usual? You know what I mean?
It is different in the sense that, I found out very quickly that everything you do in your planning and your experiences when you're there are totally geared towards the kid. Because for example, like often if you're traveling with 2 parents and 2 children or extended groups, you can split up. If I wanted to go ride Expedition Everest a couple times, or if I wanted to do some of the higher thrill kind of things that the young one can't do, well, we would just split up so I could do it. But when you go by yourself, you don't have a choice. So because there's no choice, I automatically found myself sort of doing everything that kind of in a way spoiling Alec, because you basically do whatever it is that he wants to do. But it's kind of neat to do that because you kind of relive some of the attractions that you kind of wouldn't forget, or that you kind of have forgotten that you've experienced before. And when you do it with a kid, you can sort of totally focus on their enjoyment and see which attractions they liked, and sort of the kind of experiences that they get out of them as they're doing it. And that was kind of a very different perspective than I'm used to. Because as you mentioned, I have gone solo a number of times. And, when you're doing that, it's the exact opposite. You do what you want to do.
Now, have any of you, besides Fred, you've gone, I know, Len, you've gone down with Hannah. Yep. Just you and Hannah, and your wife has not come down. Yep. Is that different? How different is that for you, Len, than when you go down there with your wife?
I think like Fred said, actually, it's you instead of doing what the adult wants or compromises, really you're playing largely, at least in the initial part, you're playing largely to whatever the child wants to do. I think it was a little bit different with Alec than with Hannah. Alec's 5 and Hannah was 9, so I did actually trade off a couple of things with Hannah that I wanted to do and that she wanted to do. So we actually took turns picking things. I think with Alec though, you're pretty much doing, because of his age, you're pretty much doing what he wants to do, and on his schedule as well.
I was just going to say that the other thing with Alec being so young is that he tends to go down a lot earlier at night to sleep. So your night times are basically in the hotel room. So
oh yeah.
That's one thing for sure. So I think it's important if you're going to do it, especially with a younger child, to make sure you pick a resort that you like and that you'd like to hang out in, and even one that maybe has room service, or if you can afford it, like a concierge level or something, so that you're not totally trapped in your room with the kid at night. Oh,
that's a good point. We Hannah and I did both concierge and room service one night, and one of the best evenings we actually had during the entire 2 trips over the summer was spending one night watching TV in the room and ordering room service and watching James Bond. It really wasn't bad, yeah.
Scopinay, you've been down there too. Now, did you bring Kane or Abel with you down for that trip?
Let's see, which one had the loincloth? But actually, I have been down there with my son, but it was about 2.5 years ago, and he was 25 at the time, so maybe this isn't the kind of father-son, father-child discussion that you want. I mean, all he wanted to do was do Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster, Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, Big Thunder. Actually, Len rode a couple of rides with him.
Len, when you're planning a trip from perhaps the touringplans.com perspective,
I think that, and Fred, you can correct me if I'm wrong, small kids don't really care one way or the other about sit-down meals. So,
unless it's a character dining.
Unless it's character dining, yeah. And even then, I don't know that they want to do it every day. I think if you can...
no.
If you could, yeah. I mean, I don't think dining is really important to people until they're in their late teens or early 20s. So finding characters are probably more important than I would say is riding attractions. Still, though, there are certain attractions that you want to be able to show the kids to sort of get them used to the theme parks, and getting through those quickly is probably still important. Everyone's so adrenalized when they get to one of the theme parks that they definitely want to do rides first, and you want to get those things done in as efficient a manner as possible. If they're really young, though, I mean, like 5 or 6 or so, and they don't know what rides they haven't been on before. If this is the first time, it's kind of tough to say, well, we're going to do this complete tour of Walt Disney World, and then you'll figure out what you like. You pretty much have to play it by ear and sort of go by a general feel of what the kids might like. So, start off in Fantasyland, maybe head over to Frontierland, but really just kind of be loose and flexible.
Fred, have there been any mistakes that you've made, with traveling alone with your kids that, you say, wow, this, you maybe want to share with our listeners something that you did that was unique to that kind of situation, and say, it's something you've learned from since then?
Well, one thing I was kind of surprised about when I took Alec a couple weeks ago was how much he liked Epcot, especially as a young kid. It's not typically considered one of the most kid-friendly, especially little kid-friendly parks, but we had a great time there because it's the kind of place where you can just purely wander around. Like I think when you've got a couple kids or when you've got kind of people split up, you're kind of chasing 2 or 3 at the same time. But it was just me and him. I could let him, like for example, Innoventions. He could go in there and I could let him take as much time as he wants, trying every little gadget, even like the Kid Cot stops, places like that. He loved it. Like the Living Seas, we must have spent an hour there just walking around, playing those little exhibits. I never had to worry about, getting us separated from another group or anything. We just walked around there for a long time. So I would think, like Len said, you kind of got to go with the flow. I mean, you definitely want to, plan to get rid of sort of the bottlenecks early in the morning. But then once you do that, be flexible. Like spend some time just wandering through things that you might not normally think the kid would enjoy.
It's interesting that some of the things that you've said. I know that when you guys were talking about the really skipping sit-down meals to some extent, it's kind of like you're taking a part of the page out of the solo touring. When some people go solo, they generally skip sit-down meals, and then you're taking parts of the Dumbo or Die touring plan, if I can borrow a phrase from Len, and kind of like merging the two. So it's like part family touring, part solo touring, and kind of combining them because they're different elements that work together. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Sounds right.
Well said, Len. Another tip I would give people that when you are dining at counter service, mostly I guess, is that the cast members, for me anyway, with Alec, usually in a stroller, pushing him around, there's always an extra cast member willing to help us take our food to the tables and stuff, because that's one thing I was kind of worried about is how am I going to get him? Yeah, how am I going to get him to sit down while I get the food and line up and stuff?
Did you have to ask, or did they offer it?
I would say probably of the 5 or 6 times it happened, half the time they offered, and half the times I just asked if they would mind.
Really?
And of course they were willing, yeah. Well, they see me kind of trying to balance a tray of food on one hand and push a stroller with the other. They usually would come over and say, can I help you get to your seat?
Well, that's part of the reason why you were mentioning earlier, Fred, that you like going to Walt Disney World with your kids, because it's that kind of the atmosphere is conducive to helping you, as opposed to if you were in New York City and you're trying to get down the street and someone like Newell just shoves you aside because he's got to get to his bus.
That's right. Get out of my way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Plus, it's a great way to make the ex jealous. Take your kid to Walt Disney World.
Exactly.
That's just a personal bonus. But I would say also, I was glad that we decided to use Disney Transportation. I didn't get a car because, again, it's a bit of a way to save hassle. Plus, it's a good way just to meet other kids and parents, just kind of mingle as you're on the bus or on the Disney's Magic Express.
Have you found that you not introduce your children, but kind of promote more the mingling of your children and other children more so because you're traveling solo and you want to, maybe give them that extra dimension of interaction?
I would say so, yeah. I would say so because, like I said before, it's just, you do have the child-parent, sort of dynamic going on constantly. It's good to let them have the child to another child dynamic, as well as me talking with other parents, just mingling and chatting about where everybody's from and stuff like that.
I thought a great example of that was thinking back to our dinner at Ohana, where your child Alec was he was really into the entertainment they had over there. The woman who kind of did the coconut race with the kids.
Yeah. And
he really took, because we were there long enough for her to come out twice, and he did it 2 times. He tried to. Len's wife brought him Alec there one time.
That's right. Yeah.
And then when she came out again, Alec was like to Len's wife, "Let's go again. Let's go again."
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, some guy came home with a suitcase full of red Lays, I think. Each time he went out, we got a couple.
So, any other activities that you found that were really conducive to you, really made your life a little bit easier as a single parent?
Like getting around the airport was easy and everything, and renting cars and.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Oh, I don't know if this applies to many of your listeners, but for me, coming across the border from Canada, it was important to have a letter from the other parent letting them know that I had permission to cross the border.
Really?
That's a good
one. I've heard that recommended before, and I always do it, but this was the first time they actually asked. When I crossed over, they asked if I had a letter, and I was able to pop it out and say, yep. So that was definitely one thing I was glad I had.
Wow.
That's interesting.
If you would have said no, what would have happened? I guess they would have said, sorry, you can't leave the...
Well, I got the sense that the customs agent was actually kind of surprised that I said, yes, I do have it. So she said, oh,
Really?
Can I see it? Yes. I said, oh, can I see it? I said, sure, here it is.
Look, we got one.
Read it and weep. So she read it.
Read it and weep.
That's awesome.
But no, flying was.
Did the border agent see the tears from your ex-wife? Not being able to go to Walt Disney World also.
Exactly.
Yeah, on the letter. No, I don't think she noticed that part.
Should we do a singles ad for you, Fred? Now saying subtly Canadian statistician.
two cute kids and a wad full of cash that he just can't seem to spend fast enough.
I'm just saying that the Canadian dollar is doing fairly well against the U.S. dollar right now. So
I'll be like one of those on the Michael Moore sicko thing there, where he talks about get hitched with a Canadian just for the health benefits.
Exactly. A couple more years, I'm just saying. Yeah.
Well, Fred, thanks for coming on to talk to us about this. I'm sure there's many of our listeners are interested in this kind of thing because maybe they may not necessarily be single parents, but perhaps a lot of them do go down to Walt Disney World just alone, and perhaps the other their significant other can't make the trip or something like that. And I think there are some tips here that are very interesting that I think can help. So we thank you for coming on and talking with us, Fred.
My pleasure.
That's it for us today. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.wdwtoday.com. For Len Heston, Mike Scopo, Mike Newell, and Superfan99, I'm Matt Hotchberg. We'll see you on the next show.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio. Small World Vacations is proud to sponsor today's podcast. Their team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners and are recommended by MouseSavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars. Get your free price quote at WDWVacations.com. Small World Vacations, where the magic begins.